NittanyLionRoar with Extreme Panda here, and surprise, in an unexpected move, Small Giant Games went ahead overnight and rebalanced a number of heroes that they said they were going to rebalance, but we weren't expecting this change for at least a couple more weeks or maybe a month. But I think that they were probably feeling some pressure to make the changes faster. So here we are. This is the new Hilarya. She did indeed get a nerf, and I'm going to talk about that a bit, but I'd like to talk about the other changes to the heroes too, because although there were a couple of significant nerfs with Hilarya and Beyla, there are a number of boosts or buffs given to heroes, which I think are exciting too. So let's go through them all. I'm just going to talk about my opinion mostly, and again, this is just my opinion. I can only speak for myself and my playstyle and what I think. Can't really speak for other people in their situations. Everybody's roster is a little bit different. So let's take a look at what they changed about Hilarya. Now, first of all, I want to say don't panic. She retained a lot of the same abilities she had before. They're just weakened, and I think you're going to find that Hilarya is still one of, if not the most powerful tank in the game right now. So I would venture to say we're not going to feel much of a difference with her, but we should start to see higher win rates, and not for it to be impossible to win whenever you have a bad board or anything. This might give a little more wiggle room to get out of a bad board. So first of all, her mana generation for all enemies decreased from negative 34% for 3 turns to negative 24% for 2 turns. And this is a significant nerf to her, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad nerf. In fact, this is the ability that made her so maddening to face in a lot of cases and almost unwinnable, and really brought that feeling of luck being the biggest factor in whether you win or not skill. Now, again, if you saw my videos on should they nerf Hilarya or not, I was not advocating for a nerf. I don't like when they nerf heroes after they release them. But if they're going to go ahead and do it, I think this is a relatively fair one, decreasing the mana generation effect that Hilarya did, because this is what made her so difficult in the first place. The HP inherited by minions reduced from 18% to 13%. Yeah, that's fine. I think that's fair. This is the one I don't like. HP regeneration reduced from 411 over 3 turns to 306 over 2 turns. I think that they probably got the mana generation nerf right. I didn't think they really needed to reduce the heal over time effect, and here's why. So I think reducing the mana generation is good to make a more fair tank. I think you're going to see some diversity in the game because of that. Now, a lot of tanks are useful, but Hilarya will still probably be the best because of still retaining that effect. 2 turns is a lifetime in this game. What I didn't want to see was Hilarya be hurt too much as an offensive type of hero, and I think that reducing the heal over time does reduce her effectiveness as an offensive hero. Not much. It's only 100 HP per hero, but I'd like to see them protect the heal over time more and nerf the mana generation more, if that makes sense. That kind of evens her out a little bit to be, I think, good on offense, great on defense, but not overpowered. My personal opinion is we're still going to see Hilarya all over the place. You don't have to quit the game because they nerfed Hilarya. In fact, I think in wars who are using Hilarya right now, you're going to find that it's still okay. But what I think we will also see is more diversity in tank choices in the top 100. Okay, so Beyla. What has changed is the amount of extra water damage to fire enemies has been reduced, but it is still there. So I think that that's important. Beyla's still going to be a really strong option to put next to Hilarya, but not quite as strong as before. An attack ailment to all fire enemies reduced from negative 54% to negative 34%. Again, I think that's actually a pretty good one. I felt like Beyla was just too inhospitable to red heroes. So this is okay, but I am a little bit worried about the net effect of the nerf to Hilarya, which I think the nerf is okay, and the nerf to Beyla, which I think that nerf is okay, but I think the net effect of the two together might actually end up being too much, but we'll see. We're gonna have to play it and feel it out and things like that. At the very least, and it might actually be right. You know, I don't know. Maybe Hilarya and Beyla get down to the point where now you have options for tank and flank, and you have a lot of good options out there. So you can really play the game in a way that makes it fun, which if you saw my Does Hilarya Need Nerfed videos, I had mentioned one thing that makes gameplay fun is diversity. So in part number 2, even though I wasn't advocating for a nerf in particular, one thing that Hilarya certainly has done is destroyed the diversity in the game, because everybody, if they have her, just plays her, and then it has reduced the number of different types of defenses you see at the highest levels. Okay, so another change, and really, I think, first of all, before we go on, if you haven't seen my psychology of randomness video, one of the things that I had said in that was that negative feelings are more salient than positive ones. So I think people are going to get really hyper-focused on the nerfs, but there's a lot of really good buffs here as well, and I'm actually really excited about a lot of these. So let's talk about them. Margaret, in my opinion, got one of the best buffs and is now usable. Not only usable, but might actually be a very good hero to take on offense. So she deals 150% damage to target and nearby enemies, and they increase the minimum dodge probability from 20 to 30%. So that little bit of increased damage goes a long way into making her useful. And what I think you're going to find with her on offense is you stick her right in the middle, kind of like an offensive tank, and she really protects the heroes around her quite well. So if you're attacking with a strong green team against Hilarya with Beyla flank, I think you're going to find that she is going to help your team stay alive long enough to kill that team. So Margaret, if you have Margaret and you had previously leveled her and felt bad about it, feel bad no longer, she's good. And if you have her and you haven't leveled her, I still think that there are better heroes than her, like Kingston and of course Hilarya and things like that. So, but if you have some tonics and nothing to do with them and you just have a Margaret sitting there, she's a great one to feed those tonics to. Guardian Kong, this is one that I have that I had mentioned in a previous video was maybe due for a buff. So I think this is one that I'm really excited about too. The direct damage was increased from 220 to 250. Now, one thing you have to realize about Guardian Kong, if you haven't checked out his card, is he has an extremely high attack stat. It's one of the highest attack stats in the game. So 220% before with that high attack stat was actually not too bad. If you've seen my war videos, you've seen me take him in and use him on my Boomer Bust Red team, and he's really what ends the game. If I'm able to get Wilbur off, it usually means I've got my other heroes off. As soon as I hit Guardian Kong, you see the entire enemy team disappear, and that was with 220% damage, so now it's 250. Remember, he's average speed, so you put a level 23 mana troop on him, and all of a sudden, he goes off with only 3 matches. Now, here's the big thing. This is what actually makes Guardian Kong good in the future. He dispels status ailments from all allies. So, if you take him against Hilarya, and Hilarya goes off and you're able to use him, you've just cleared the status ailment for your entire team. Or Beyla goes off, and now you can clear the status ailments from your whole team, or Gravemaker, or Drake, or so on and so on. So Guardian Kong is now very much like how Zimkeitha before was an offensive clearer of status ailments. Guardian Kong is now too, and you can't have too much of that effect. In fact, I think that it's very wise of Small Giant Games to be putting more of this ability on more heroes, just because they printed so many damage over time, status ailment types effects, and things like that. So this is a good one to add to it. You probably are going to want 2 of this effect on every offensive team at least. So like I like to take Costume Regard, and I would love to have Guardian Kong on an offense too. So whichever tiles I get first, red or purple, I'm going to be able to clear ailments. Like for example, I had just done a video on the Demisha costume, and I took Ariel and Demisha, and it was nice to have 2 of that I was winning a lot of raids being able to have 2 that effect on one offensive team. Okay, let's talk about Guardian Owl, which a lot of people have been calling for a buff for a long time. He has been unusable, except at maybe the tank position, and even there, like, he's still not the best tank, or even one of the best 3 tanks probably. His direct damage is increased from 235% to 280%, and his damage increase per dead ally decreased from 60% to 50%. My opinion on this one is this buff doesn't matter probably at all, and the reason is because he's a very slow hero, and that's just too slow. That's just too slow in this meta. There's no amount of changing his specials that are going to make him useful, in my opinion, unless he were to somehow be faster. You know what would be a really cool ability for like a Guardian Owl, which would actually make him better on offense probably. I'd actually like to see this on more slow or very slow heroes. The more colors you have that match that hero, the faster their mana ability. So for example, if you put Guardian Owl at tank and you put 4 other yellow heroes behind him, all of a sudden he goes from like very slow to fast. I think that would be really cool. Because there's a trade-off there. Well, someone can bring like heavy purple and just annihilate the team potentially. But that would be a really cool thing to do for offense. If you go like 4-1 or 3-2, you know, you take a couple of the same color hero, and then all of a sudden he's fantastic. So I like seeing the possibility for changing mana speeds. Guardian Chameleon, element change duration increased from 3 to 4 turns. I mean, I was never super high on Guardian Chameleon. I can't find uses for him. I don't have him, but I don't know. Like, maybe somebody who has more experience with him can comment and tell us what they think about him, but I don't think that buff really does anything for him. Queen of Hearts, I think, is a hero that they really tried to make be a strong red tank or something like that in the past, that just kind of missed the mark. Like, I think Queen of Hearts does, or I think Queen of Hearts is probably what they had hoped a hero like Black Knight would be, because Black Knight is very similar, but actually does all the good stuff. So what they did for Queen of Hearts was increase direct damage from 230 to 240%. I think that's good. It's good to have an aggressive defensive type of hero. You know, I don't like when defense heroes are too inactive or not proactive. Also, HP inherited by minions increased from 13% to 16%, so that just makes the whole team tougher. Okay, Atomos. This is a pretty big buff. Direct damage increased from 150% to 170%. Maximum direct damage based on enemies' mana increased from 270% to 290%. And the mana speed changed from slow to average. This is huge. And in fact, I'm very surprised to see the mana speed change, because that is not something I think that Small Giant Games has wanted to do with any heroes. You could even see they left Owl at very slow. So it is now gonna, you can set Atomos, excuse me, you can set Atomos off at basically fast speed with a level 23 mana troop. So he's now pretty good, and I think gonna be very tough on both offense and defense if you're not using green as your like tank. He's not a tank hero, but I don't think he'd be bad at tank, but he seems like a hero that's probably better for the flank. Okay, Mach R, direct damage to all enemies increased from 250% to 270%, and direct damage to all allies decreased from 80% to 50%. So I think this does make Mach R a little better. This is not as great of a increase as we saw Atomos get up here. But I think it does make him a lot better. Gobbler, yeah, Gobbler needed some stuff. I think I'm just going to go through the 4-star heroes pretty quickly because I think the 5-star ones are the ones that get the most conversation, but we do have tournaments and things, and so I think that it's important to know what some of these buffs and nerfs are doing. Okay, so attack decreased from 737 to 641. Defense increased from 450 to 614. HP decreased from 1302 to 1215. Amount of HP recovered for each minion destroyed increased from 50 to 80. Direct damage increased from 155 to 170. This is a really interesting one because they buffed some of his abilities and nerfed some of his abilities. I think it just ends up becoming a net pretty even. I don't think it's going to change him too much, but I think the direct damage increase is pretty big, so this might still be an overall buff. I was thinking they had done more to him by looking at this text, but I think it all evens out. I think there's a lot of text here for basically not a lot of change. Okay, Sir Lancelot, direct damage increased from 250 to 265. It's pretty self-explanatory. That's better. I think that's needed. In fact, Sir Lancelot, I think his direct damage should be a lot higher than 265 even. But his ability of increasing the attack is what makes him good in like tournaments and things. Sumitomo, direct damage increased from 280 to 300. That's okay. That doesn't really change how you use him. Dansborough, direct damage increased from 240 to 255. So they're really just some of these heroes that don't get a lot of use. They're just making them a little bit more deadly. But looking at some of the increased attacks, I'm not sure that a lot of them matter that much. But maybe if you increase the attacks of a lot of these heroes, it just adds up when you're taking 5 heroes versus 5 heroes. Hu Tao, direct damage increased from 200 to 210. That's like nothing. Accuracy status ailments increased from negative 35% to negative 40%. So that's actually really annoying. Because it's negative 40%. It's only a 5% increase, but you notice that when your heroes are missing, it feels so bad. All right, so that's really it as far as rebalancing this time. I'm a little bit surprised that they came out and just did it like unannounced, almost like they just decided last night that they were gonna do this. I know they probably didn't just decide last night, but it feels like that. And I think that overall, I'm seeing a lot of good things here. There's definitely more buffs than there are nerfs. And so it's going to allow us to explore some more heroes a little bit better. I'm not too upset about the nerfs, but it remains to be seen what's going to happen with Hilarya and Beyla as they get nerfed here. So I don't know how you guys feel about this. Make sure to comment. Let us all know. If you have any thoughts or disagreements with me, feel free to post it and let me know. Otherwise, make sure to like and subscribe.